What is the rudest thing that a new neighbor has done to you immediately after you had moved in? I had a bad neighbor once. Shortly after I moved in, he started calling the police about any little thing. My trash can went out too early, police showed up. Had a few friends over for a housewarming who parked on the street, enforcement was called to ticket them minutes after alternating parking times switched. After several such petty things happened, I assumed the local cops were just bored and or being jackholes. Then there was a noise complaint that a cop showed up for, and noted the volume was fine, had a radio on while working on my car. He kind of let slip who called it in by going to speak with the neighbor, across the road. After that I spoke to him one day, first time beyond waving and saying hi. When I saw him out on his porch, he basically called me a slur, and told me to go procreate with myself. After that I went out of my way to keep as clean a nose as possible, but started retaliating in kind. I called in his high grass when he let it get too long, called enforcement to ticket his daughter's car a changeover, called the police to report a drunk driver after he'd been drinking on his porch and loudly asked his daughter if she wanted anything from the local burger joint as he got in the car. He did some work on his house, and I called the city inspector. He got fines for lack of permits on that one. The turning point came when he was watching his granddaughter. Whoever would leave a 4-year-old with that man is an idiot. He was again drinking, and passed out with her playing by the road. I called it in. Cops arrived to find her in the road drawing with chalk, and him passed out drunk on the porch. He took a swing at the cops that woke him, which landed him in jail overnight. The daughter and granddaughter stopped coming over as often after that. He got pissed when he found out I'd called it in, and screamed at me from his porch one night, threatening me. When I told him to procreate with himself, he threw a bottle and damaged my property, all caught on camera. He started across the road, but changed his mind when the dog stood up and bristled. I called it in and insisted I wanted to press charges when they showed up. They approached him, and he got rowdy, probably drunk again, and was arrested, again. Second trip to jail in 1 week. A week or so later, he called the 911 and filed a report that I had unlicensed dogs running amok, snapping at kids. I provided papers for my well-trained and very friendly dogs, all licensed and vaccinated, then showed time-stamped video footage of the dogs laying in the sun in my fenced backyard that day. The front cameras showed no dogs or kids anywhere for hours before, just the officers walking up to the house. After I noted his recent arrests for public drunkenness, the officer decided to do a sobriety test. More arguments, resisting, back in handcuffs, and off to jail. They charged him with filing a false report and resisting arrest that time. The judge gave him a small fine, and warned they'd allow my motion for a restraining order if he wound up in court again within 6 months. He didn't last 4 weeks. One night he got drunk, and got the bright idea to take out the cameras before smashing up my car, as if they weren't night vision enabled, and footage would be lost if he smashed them first. I had video of him swinging at them in the car. He couldn't see, or reach, the camera on the second story, which recorded all of it. Videos weren't really needed though, since the cops showed up while he was still in my driveway. They chased him a block or two, more resisting, another trip to jail, and he was held for trial this time. That one cost him thousands in damages and the restraining order. Somehow he didn't lose his job, but that didn't stop him from lying about it and refusing to pay. I eventually got a lien on his house and his income garnished for non-payment. My lawyer was a true saint through all of this. Months later he came crying to me to call off the lawyers, because he couldn't make ends meet and was going to lose his home. I told him if he didn't get off my property I'd call the cops on him for violating the restraining order. It took him a few seconds, but he was sober, and decided not to push it, and really, no sense sending him back to jail. I'd never get my money that way. Eventually he put the house up for sale, and both my lawyer and I finally got paid off when it closed. I found out later he hadn't just been targeting me. He'd been doing the same petty things to several other neighbors for years, but nobody had stood up to him. All were happy to see him leave. I pity his new neighbors, wherever he wound up, but I feel not 1 ounce of remorse for putting the screws to him. He earned every twist he took, and then some.